Welcome to this week's episode of the Prep Athletics Podcast. I'm proud to have Coach Max Gordon on from the St. Paul's School in New Hampshire. And Max spent his high school years at New Hampton before transferring to Exeter and then playing at Carnegie Mellon. And he's been at St. Paul's now for a while. He talks about single A, how he gets his players, the growth of prep school basketball, and much, much more. So thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Prep Athletics Podcast. This is Corey Heights.
Some battles. I'm not sure if they got us. If they did, maybe.
So you will get better as a player during that year.
So it was kind of exciting. Like, oh yeah, somebody wants me.
Max, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Corey. Looking forward to talking today.
Yeah, me too. And you grew up in New Hampshire, and you yourself ended up choosing to go to a prep school. Talk me through what that decision-making process was and how you chose a prep school.
That's a great question. So my mom actually worked at New Hampton School, and I don't know if you knew that, but she worked at New Hampton School and she worked in admissions. And so I was a day student there for 3 years, and I had a good experience there, enjoyed being at school there, but I was looking to get away from home, have a new experience. And that was right when actually Jay Tilton, who's at Exeter now, was starting to be their coach. And his dad was coaching at New Hampton back in the day. And his dad was like, hey, you need to take a look at this school, get away from home, do something new. And so I started talking to Jay, and he recruited me down to Exeter. And what I was really looking for in that experience was, what I sell to a lot of kids here at St. Paul's is becoming college ready. And I had 2 years where I was really academically, I was really pushed. 2 years away from home. I did a reclass junior, senior year. 2 years away from home where I had to grow and be independent. And then 2 years of really high level basketball, just like New Hampton, obviously, but there was more opportunity for me to play there at that time. And so I really got those 2 years of experience inside and outside the classroom, on and off the court, that got me college ready. And that's what I was looking for, to be ready to take that next step and become a college basketball player and be ready once I got there. And that opportunity to be pushed academically as well as on the court. And that's really what I got. And I had a wonderful experience there. And Jay and I have now had our battles, St. Paul's versus Exeter, and we've both gotten a couple against each other now. But he's a mentor and a friend, and that kind of got me into the boarding school world. And when I went to college, I was a business major at Carnegie Mellon, and I thought that that's what I wanted to do, go work in sports marketing or sports advertising. And about halfway through my college experience, I realized that I love to read and I love basketball. And so I thought, why don't I go back to boarding school and try to do these things for a living? And I've been a teacher and a coach ever since.
Perfect. How did you go choosing Carnegie Mellon?
Great question. So when I was a senior at Exeter, the schools that were recruiting me the hardest were Tufts and Middlebury and Carnegie Mellon. And I visited all three, and really it was by feel. When I'm walking my players through the recruiting process right now, I always tell them a few important things. I'm like, if you go there and you get hurt, are you still going to be happy there? If you go there and your career's not all that it's cracked up to be, are you still going to be happy there? And then number two, how much does the coach want you? Because you got to be really wanted. And that makes such a big difference in terms of the athletic side of the career. And so for me, my mom's family is from the Pittsburgh area originally, so I had some familiarity out there. And when I visited Carnegie Mellon, just the guys on the team felt like a great fit. Wanting to have a business major versus an economics major felt like a great fit. The city itself felt like a great fit. So all these things that weren't what the coach was telling me about my role and my playing time, it felt like the place where I wanted to be from an academic and personal standpoint. And then from the basketball standpoint, had a good relationship with the coach, Tony Wingen, who's still there, and the opportunity to play in the UAA, which is such a wonderful league. Like the opportunity to fly to our games, go play NYU, go play Chicago, Brandeis, WashU. That was really exciting for me to play that high level of Division III basketball. And the other schools I loved as well. I could have gone to any place, wonderful coaches at those places, wonderful schools. Also a desire on my end to get a little bit away from home too. I had, wonderful relationship with my parents. but I wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone as well and get out in New England. And I am so grateful for that. Even though I'm back in New England now, I'm so grateful for a college experience that was a little bit different than, just going an hour and a half down the road from where I grew up.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Now, let me walk back to a statement you said when you chose Exeter, you chose to reclass. And I was just talking to a family yesterday about reclassing versus just staying the course and then doing a post-grad year. Explain to me your logic on, is there one benefit over the other, and how you describe this to families? And take St. Paul out of it, because I know you guys don't have a post-grad year. We'll get to that. But walk me through that logic.
So it's hard to take St. Paul's out of it because obviously I'm biased, and I like that, we're a school without a post-grad year. And I think that's really great for our community and for our team. For me, for myself, that opportunity to have 2 years at a place, 2 years with a coach, 2 years with my teammates, 2 years from an academic perspective. I think, every player that does this in the boarding school process, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 years at a place, every player who goes to play in college, they know how much easier that second year is than the first year. It is such a big adjustment year, whether it's the level of play that's a step up, whether it's the academic rigor that's a step up, whether it's just being away from home is a step up. And then all of a sudden you show up on the second year and you're like, oh, I know this. I've got this under control. And now everything gets better. Your performance on the court, your performance in the classroom, your relationship with your peers. And so for me, that's what I was looking for, that 2-year experience as opposed to just 1 year in and out. And like I said, I'm biased. And when families ask me about this at St. Paul's, and I truly believe this, we don't have post-grads, and I see that 2 years as a transformative experience. Our guys who come in for 2 years, by the time they leave, they feel like St. Paul's graduates, and they are. And I know all these other wonderful schools that run great PG programs. Those guys still get their diplomas from that school and all that stuff. But I feel like for us, that 2-year experience, it's relationship with your coach. It's being able to get what St. Paul's is trying to give you in 2 years, be able to get familiar and really fall in love with the place. And that's just speaking on behalf of our guys who I know who have come here, gotten what they wanted out of it, and fallen in love with this place. They want to come back. They want to come to games. They're, still in touch with me. And I think those experiences could happen in a post-grad year too, but I think, 2 years is just, you get that opportunity to be transformed by a place, as opposed to what I say can sometimes be a little bit transactional when it's just 1 year in, 1 year.
Yeah, but am I assuming Exeter would not have done a 12th grade post-grad option for you?
I think they would have. If I wanted to do 1 year, 1 year, they do. Like, we don't do at St. Paul's, we don't do 1 year seniors, but Exeter did. And for me personally, and like you probably talked to many families about, I needed that extra year to develop physically. I needed that extra year to develop, confidence on the court, get the reps, get the playing time. I needed that extra year academically to prepare myself for college. That extra year it was so valuable for me, whether that's a 5th year as a PG year, whether that's a reclass at whatever grade you're going to do. At these high academic schools, we have families ask all the time, oh, I'm a great student, why do I need to reclass? And the players normally get it, and the parents normally need to be introduced to it, particularly those if they're not from New England and it's a little bit less familiar where they're from. I just think both that physical development and the rigor in the classroom and the independence too. Like, I really do think that extra year can make people so college ready that it can be a real difference maker.
Absolutely. But here's my question here to be a little bit more clear on it. You're going to do 2 years at Exeter, right?
Yep.
You chose to reclass and redo 11th and 12th.
Yep.
Or you could have done 12th grade post-grad. 2 years.
Gotcha.
Different designations. How do you explain, since you don't have a post-grad year, can you explain if there's one benefit over the other, or does it even matter?
Oh man, I think,
There's something about that you can retake classes as a post-grad. You can retake one if you're a normal educational kid. And then if you have an IEP/learning disability, you can retake 3 classes. So I think that might be the reason to do the post-grad option, but I don't ever have a great answer for that. I know coaches answer families that question. I just didn't know if you knew one way or the other, one was better or not. It's tricky.
It's tricky. I think in it's school dependent too. And obviously the NCAA has their rules about Division I eligibility. And that's all about, what happens in the first 4 years anyway. It's tricky I think it's all based on what the school can offer, what is the families looking for. I think most of our schools at the high academic level like to emphasize that that students don't have to retake classes, because they probably, the players
Right.
that are looking at the Exeters and the St. Paul's or the Andovers, the Choates, they usually don't want to retake classes because they're already so far along. And so we have the course offerings. Exeter has the course offerings where you don't have to retake classes. So I think that, that junior senior reclass versus senior post-grad, I've seen some people who do the senior post-grad thing at a place like Bridgeton, where they might want to see what their recruiting is like after senior year, so that the opportunity to leave after 1 year is an option. And I can see that as really logical for the right person, the right player, to have a little bit more flexibility. So I think that is so individual based and school based, what people are looking for. And honestly, I thought about that a little bit myself. Like, do I want to do a senior year, see what happens with my recruiting, and then post grad? And honestly, I didn't want to mess around with kind of the uncertainty, and am I going to apply to the school that I'm currently at again? What do I have to do with all that? I just thought, like, I want 2 years that I'm going to invest myself in this place. And so I think that's what made my decision, when I was back in high school. But I think that like I said, it's very individual.
Yeah, and what I tell families is, look, talk to each school's coach, get their advice on it. It might be better at their school to reclass, or due to circumstances, it might be better to do 12th grade post-grad. So each coach might have their own pitch on how to do that. But my statement on this as well, Max, is you probably need that 5th year regardless, because the game at the college level is getting so old. So it's just figure out individually which one makes sense for you and then go from there. But the key is, if you're talking to prep school coaches, folks, ask their opinion for their school, because some schools you can graduate 12th grade year from, but you can't attend their prep school for post-grad.
Yep.
So every place is a little bit different. Everyone has their own logic. Talk to the prep school coach. They're going to know best on this.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. All right. Now, you coach at St. Paul's. Give us your pitch on St. Paul's. What makes it special as a school? What makes it a great basketball program? This is your elevator pitch time, Max.
Thank you. What I focus on with families here is 3 things. I focus, number 1, on our academics. We are as good as it gets. All of the high academic boarding schools, some of which I mentioned before, we're right there. So if you want top class, top notch academics, you're going to get them at St. Paul's. Number 2 is our sense of community. We are right in the middle size wise, and that says a lot about who we are. There's smaller boarding schools that are 250, 300. There's larger ones that are 1,000 or more. And we are 540 students, and we're 100% boarding. So every student, every faculty member lives on campus. And that means we have a really strong sense of community here. And so what that plays out in a player's life here, and a student athlete's life, is their math teacher really knows their name, and they go to their games. And their math teacher is going to be in the student center for extra help the day after their game if they need to be, help studying for a test. They're going to be there for office hours. And it's big enough where you're going to make new friends around campus, but it's small enough that, we get big crowds in our gym, and the students all know each other, and they care about each other, and they invest in each other. And I think that comes from the size of the community, the 100% residential, and that everybody who comes here has to be here for at least 2 years. So the academics, the community, and then on the basketball side, I believe we play pretty much the hardest schedule there is for a high academic prep school. I know that a lot of schools could claim that. And so I don't necessarily think our schedule is harder than school X, Y, or Z. But because we're in Class A, which is an incredibly high level of NEPSAC basketball, we're in Class A, where the teams who win Class A on a year-by-year basis are really, really good. And, multiple Division I players, multiple high-level Division III players. They're really, really good. And then we're also in the Lakes Region League. So we play Brewster every year. We play New Hampton every year. We play Vermont Academy, Tilton, KUA. And so that level of competition for us, I think that at a high academic school, it's going to be hard to find another school that gets that level of competition. And what that means for prospective students is they're going to get the exposure, and then they're going to get the experience necessary to ready themselves for the next level. And so that's what I focus on with us. Is it's the academics, it's the community, and it's that high level of basketball. And at the same time, on the basketball front, because we're a school without post-grads, I believe that we have a really strong team culture and we have a focus on player development at St. Paul's because we have to. There's nobody's coming here for 1 year, coming in and out. And my assistant coach and I have to work really hard on helping players get better and better each year so that we can continue to get more and more competitive. So from a coaching perspective, what you get here is a coach that really wants to develop you and a coach that's going to invest in you because you're going to be around for 2, 3, 4 years, and a coach that is not going to recruit over you because that's not how we work. We bring in new 9th, 10th, 11th, and 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, and we have to work to develop them each year because that's how we grow as a program. And we can't bring in that 1 year guy. So if you come here and you work hard and you're coachable, your role is only going to expand year by year. And I work really hard to recruit guys who are coachable and who want to be good teammates. And that reflects in our culture because everybody that my assistant coach and I coach, we have to coach them for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and they have to be good teammates for 2 or 3 or 4 years. So we try to recruit the guys who really want to be here and really want to be coached. And I think that results in a program with players who really enjoy playing together and enjoy being around each other and enjoying getting into the gym and working.
Love it. Now, how do you find your players? Is it cold calls? Is it coaching contacts? Is it you being on the aggressive?
A little bit of everything. So I go, I do some travel to camps and showcases in New England, places where I think I might find good high academic players. It's got to be a focus for us. So, in our location, it's a great place to be in terms of the ability to go to and watch Ivy League elite camps or NESCAC elite camps and get an eye on who some of the young guys are that are interested in these high academic colleges. Because hopefully that means they'll be interested in a high academic prep school. And so doing some camp work, building relationships with local AAU coaches who know kids who might want to prep, and then just kind of having my ear to local basketball, trying to recruit New England really well and reaching out to the up and coming players, whether that's 9th, 10th, 11th. And then also as much as the world has changed in the last 5 to 10 years where social media plays such a big part, and we have players who are following our social media accounts and reach out with interest. And so some of the recruiting is reactive where players are reaching out with interest in us, which is great. And I think it showed some of the growth of the program. But we have players reaching out to us. And then that's the way, somebody reaches out to my assistant coach or I on social media, or somebody pops up because they're from a place where we've got another player. And then we just try to get a family's contact information and start with emails and phone calls and things like that.
All right, perfect. Now you finally built your team. You have these kids for at least 2 years. Now you got to get them to the collegiate level. What is your strategy for placement? Do you work with an AU coach? Do you ever work with college placement guys? Do you only have to do a couple kids a year so you take it on yourself? Walk me through your placement strategy.
It's a lot that I take on myself because in our program, in any given year, we're going to have 3 to 5 seniors on the team. I think in my time as head coach, the largest class we've had where they all played college basketball was 5 guys. We had 4 Division III players and 1 Division I guy in a class. But on an average year, it could be 2 in the same senior class because we're a school of 540. So we have a team where we might have 4 or 5 seniors on every team. Sometimes a couple of those guys might be multi-sport guys who could be playing college sports somewhere else. So in an average year, it could be 2 or 3 guys going to look to play in college. I take a lot on in terms of reaching out to college coaches, encouraging college coaches to get here to watch for open gyms, working with AAU coaches to get guys in the right programs and get exposure, working with families to make sure that I know, the wants and dreams of the player. And then we have a wonderful college advising office here who those college advisors work with all students, including our student athletes. And that's where, I can make sure that let's say it's a high academic Division III player, I can make sure that I'm the liaison between the college coach, the player, our college advisor, and we're not having a kid go too far down a road with a school that he might not be able to get into, even with the support of basketball. And so it's just a matter of working with all of those people and trying to keep it organized. And so I take on a lot of that. I just have files on all of our guys and make sure I'm sending the right stuff to coaches and then getting stuff here. And then, as It's also about what the players are going to do. Like how I do everything I can as a coach. And I really view my job. Like I'm competitive. I love winning. I want to win a championship in Class A, but I view my job as getting players from point A to point B as players and as people. And so if that point B is being a college player, which the guys who come in here want to be, if that's the point B, I'm working my tail off to get them there, but they need to work their tail off too. And so that's the hours and hours in the gym. That's the weight work. It's also, the tough reality of college coach comes in a gym or comes to your AAU game or to an open gym. Like, you got to play well. You got to play hard. You got to play well. You got to perform when the right people are there. And I like to think that I've built really strong connections at the Division I and Division III level. And at the same time, players got to perform when coaches get in the gym. I can get guys in the gym a few times a year. I can get the same program in the gym a couple times a year and multiple colleges in throughout the year, but you got to perform when they show up. And I think that's, so it's all part of it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's good to let families know how your process is. Now, one thing I want to go back on, you mentioned how good single A is, and you mentioned that, you play against AAA, AA teams, and you actually beat a AAA team a few years ago. We won't mention who that was, but tell me this, does it matter in the NEPSAC if you're single A, AAA, B? Talk me through that, because I know you get that from families sometimes.
Yes. It all depends. I think that virtually any team in New England can beat anyone else on a given day. Virtually any A team, any good A team can beat anybody else on a given day. The really good B teams can beat anybody on a given day. Like I know everybody's afraid of some of those B teams, right?
That's right.
Like there's some B teams that are really, really good. And they can beat anybody, and they have. And A teams have beaten anybody, and they have. The big difference is really, again, like what does a kid want? What does a family want? The rules are a little bit different, where AAA can play more games than us. AA can play a few more games than us. Class A, we're limited to 25 regular season games, which is honestly enough, in my opinion. But 25 regular season games, Class AA can play a couple more. Class AAA can play a couple more. They get to start practice a couple weeks earlier. That's like, there's all those little rule things. And you might have more post-grads at a school or that sort of thing. But I think really, like, in terms of the level of competition, anybody can beat anybody. The difference is, what do guys 9, 10, 11, 12 look like on your roster? I think, the really good Class A teams, they're going to have 8 really good players, and maybe not all 8 are college basketball players, but maybe 5 or 6 are, and the other 2 could play college basketball, but they're playing D1 football or something like that. Difference might be on a really good Class AAA team, maybe 9, 10, 11, 12 are playing college basketball too, but that's not even true for every AAA or every AA. It's really a question of just a difference in rules, because I really do think pretty much anybody can beat pretty much anyone else. Not necessarily, that's not to say that if we played a AAA team 10 times, it's always going to be we win 5, they win 5. But on any given day, most A programs have enough talent to surprise just about anybody.
Yeah, and my standby, I've said this thousands of times. You pick a school based on the coach. I don't care what level it is. You pick it on the coach, because that's going to determine a lot of your success and satisfaction at a prep school. So, and good. Pros have come out of every class. So if you want to play in the NBA, if you're good enough, they're going to find you. Okay. So that's my thing.
Absolutely.
Next, we're going to play a game called Name the Alumni. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to name 3 alumni from St. Paul's School, and there's tons of them, tons of notable alumni. And you tell me if they know who they are, and we'll see how many you get out of 3. Okay.
Okay, go ahead. You just started off.
Okay. First is Tim Ferriss. Yeah.
The actor that's in It.
I don't think, no. Tim Ferriss is the author of the 4-hour work week. 4
That's
hour
a
body.
That's a crazy answer by me. I'm sorry. Look it up though. I guarantee you there's somebody named with the last name Ferris in the original Stephen King It movie, but that's a crazy answer on me.
You mean the one on the miniseries that was on like the late 80s?
I don't know. The original movie. Maybe that's an awful answer. I'm defending it now.
All right. I'm a child of the 80s, and in the late 80s, the It book came out with a miniseries on TV where every child in America watched it and got terrified. And then obviously they remade the movie about 10 years ago, and the clown was scary, but nothing like the 80s It Clown. So look up the 80s It Clown on Google, and you will see how that was in all our nightmares for a good two or 3 months. Tim Ferriss, one of the top podcasts in the world, author of the 4-Hour Work Week, and he has mentioned St. Paul's a couple times on his podcast. So
Awesome.
anyway,
Awesome.
Number 2, Archibald Gracie. This is a tough one.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, this is not a household name.
I thought I was gonna get Archie Cox, who I knew, who was our former president of the board of trustees, whose family worked on the Watergate case back in the day. Archie Cox, St. Paul's alum, but I don't know who Archie Gracie is.
There's no grade on this. This is just for fun. Archibald Gracie was a West Point grad and Titanic survivor.
Wow, that's awesome.
How about that? Okay, last one here. And look, there's some bigger names. This one. You got kids?
Yes, 4 and 2.
You might know this one. Clement Hurd.
I don't know who that is.
The author of Goodnight Moon.
Oh, I didn't know that was a St. Paul's alum. We have a tattered version from when I was the early 90s, when I was a kid, in my daughter's bedroom right now.
All right. I know John Kerry also went there. Are there any other heavy hitters you want to mention off the top of your head?
Good question. John Kerry is really good. I've read, I'm looking at it on my bookcase right now. Counterfeit by Kirsten Chen is an awesome book that came out in the last 10 or so years. She's a St. Paul's alum, and a boarding school in Concord, New Hampshire gets a shout out in that book.
Cool.
That's fantastic. I'm trying to think of other big ones. I mean, John Kerry is the biggest one for sure. Oh, now I'm blanking on his first name, but we just put in our science center, his last name is Enders. And he was a Nobel Prize winner for science. So that is a really good one too. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, you go to Wikipedia, the alumni at St. Paul's has their own Wikipedia page. There's so many of them, and you look at them, there's some pretty neat ones. So
Oh yeah.
that wasn't fair. I didn't give you some of the big ones, but Titanic survivor and author of Goodnight Moon is pretty darn good. So
Awesome.
we'll take that. All right. That was this week's edition of Name the Prep School Alumni. Now, if I went to your alma mater of Exeter, I know you and Jay Tilton could list off quite a few, but we're not talking about Exeter. We're talking about St. Paul. Okay, Max, what do you see as the future of prep school basketball?
That's such a good question. I think the thing that, I'm coming into my 8th year as a head coach here at St. Paul's, and the thing that I've been incredibly impressed by is the depth of Class A and how it keeps getting better and better and better. If you look at any Class A school in the last, 5 to 10 years, any school that's had a coach leave, had a coach retire, the people they are hiring in this league to coach are just really good. Maybe a lot of times they're coming from the college level, D3 assistant, D1 assistant. And with that, you've seen every program get more and more competitive. I mean, the Class A coaches, we say it to each other all the time. There really are no games off in Class A. And I think that's what I've been so impressed by, because I remember my own high school experience, and the top end of New England basketball was incredible. But you had some games that were sure things on your schedule. And I feel like most Class A schools, especially because we want to schedule as many Class A games as possible, there's very few sure thing games on your schedule, if any. And so in terms of the future of high school basketball, it seems to me, especially, in the world that I work in, it seems to me families are valuing academics more and more and more alongside athletics. And you see in the Ivy League in college being a top 10 conference in the United States, top 5 sometimes conference in terms of how competitive they are. And so I think you see how much families are valuing academics. And I think that has trickled down to the prep school level, where they're valuing academics at the prep school level too. And so where I see the future is, I think Class A is going to only get more competitive. I mean, you look at the coaches and you look at the schools that maybe were under 500 last year, but you look at their coaches and they're going to be over 500 this year. It's going to be, the fact that only 8 teams make the playoffs in our league is unbelievable, because there's going to be 12 to 16 that could beat anybody in the league in a given year. And so I see Class A getting more and more deep. And then I think the kind of classic powerhouses at the AA and AAA level, I think they'll continue to succeed, because I think those schools have put the resources in to the coaches, put the resources into the off the court training, put the resources into the schedule. You look at where some of these schools are able to travel. So I see, obviously since my time as a player, we've seen some schools kind of fall out of the ranks or maybe not even be in the knapsack anymore. But you still have the kind of traditional powerhouses in the AA and AAA, and I see those continuing because I think those serve a really important purpose for a lot of players too.
Absolutely. I share your sentiment on that with single A just getting better and better. And yeah, no nights off. It's a knife fight every game now.
Oh, yeah.
So,
oh, yeah.
What's it take, Max, to be a D1 guard?
That's such a good question. I've seen you ask other coaches this question too.
You knew it was coming.
Man, it is there is so much to it. I think that the guard position, the point guard position, it is so overcrowded in terms of guys competing for very limited spots. The taller you get, the more you separate yourself a little bit as you move to the wing and to the inside. Not that it's not incredibly hard for those guys to find their spot at a D1 school too. But I just think, you look at the way the game is played now, and most D1 guards can do both. They can handle and they can score and they can make plays. But I think first and foremost, you gotta be incredibly intelligent. Because if you look, and I've been to a lot of Division I practices, and if you watch a Division I coach a practice, I mean, you see Division I coaches sometimes when you watch on TV, you see them yelling and screaming. But those guys are so analytical in practice that you want to be a guard for a coach that knows the metrics and a coach that knows where people need to be on the court. You have to be incredibly intelligent to be able to be a guard, because in order to be a guard at that level, you got to limit mistakes and you got to make plays. And that takes a lot of brains, and it takes a lot of experience too. You need to be from, the time you're 16, 17 years old. So you talk about going to a school with a right fit, whether that's St. Paul's or somewhere else. You want to be a D1 guard, you need a coach that's going to give you reps so that you can learn and so that you can get college ready, so that when that Division I coach is expecting a high level of performance out of you and a high level of mental performance, you're able to give it. So I think the intelligence is so much, because you got it, the assignments offensively and defensively. You just have to limit mistakes. You really have to limit mistakes at a position that's so critical. And that goes for limit mistakes on the defensive end too. Like, you got to be in the right spot. You got to take a charge when it's time. You can't get caught out of position. If you're a quick guy, great, but you can't get caught out of position. If you're not a quick guy, you better always be in the right position. You can't forget to box out. You need to be smart. You need to do all the little things. And then, more or less, unless you can do something else incredibly well, you got to knock down open shots. You don't have to be Steph Curry to be a Division I guard, but you got to be a consistent shooter and a threat. And you look at someone like Drew Holiday for the Celtics this year. I mean, his corner 3-point percentage was insane. And so if you're thinking point guard in college, if you're not Steph Curry, or if you don't have Ja Morant's athleticism, shoot 50% from three in the corner. And you just got to be smart and solid and limit those mistakes.
Love it. All right, quick hitters here, Max. You ready?
All right.
Best player you ever played against?
Let's go Isaiah Thomas, lefty Celtic Isaiah Thomas, at 5-star camp in Pennsylvania, in the cabins, the bunk beds back in the day. Saw him in a game. My team played him. Thankfully, it wasn't on me that he made this move, but 5'9", takes off mid lane, crams it on somebody. He is nasty.
Okay, best player you've ever coached against?
Man, I hate to give this to a guy still in high school, but AJ DeBonsa is the truth. He is the truth. And I don't hate to give it to him, because he seems like a great kid and a hard worker and a good teammate. I would love to be able to be saying an NBA player's name right now, but he is the truth. When we played him before he left St. Seb's, when we played him his sophomore year in the playoffs, he just didn't leave a doubt of, the fact that he's going to be an NBA player. There was just no doubt. He was incredible.
Okay. Favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Okay. And your hobby when you're not coaching?
Taking care of our chickens. We got 3 chickens in the backyard.
Cool.
They're laying 2 eggs a day right now. I love them. My kids love them. Getting into gardening a little bit too.
Perfect. Is there anything you want to touch on that we didn't?
I think the only thing that's on my mind is, I mentioned what separates St. Paul's and what sets us apart. And I hope that, when players and families listen to this, if they're also thinking about like, well, what is Max Gordon? What is Coach Gordon looking for in a player? We want guys here who are versatile and who are smart and who want to be coached. Like I have my three things that St. Paul's does, and that's academics, community, and the high level of basketball. And the three things that we're looking for in players, like I want guys who are comfortable playing multiple positions. It doesn't mean if you're a stud point guard, I'm going to put you at the 4, but it means that if you get rid of the ball, you better be comfortable cutting, moving, etc. I want guys who are comfortable in multiple positions and who can guard multiple positions. And that's the way the game is moving. I want guys who are smart because we expect a high level. We expect a short learning curve at St. Paul's. And we expect a high level of being able to digest information and carry it out on the court, because I am not a coach that likes to have my fingerprints on every single second of the game. I like to give the players the plan and work with them to develop the plan and have them carry it out and get their feedback even in a game. So intelligence is huge. And then wanting to be coached. If you're going to be here for 2 or 3 or 4 years and you have big goals and big dreams, I hope you're willing to take feedback from me, and I hope you're willing to take feedback from your teammates. We had our first open gym this morning, and that was a point I emphasized. If you take a bad shot and your teammate tells you bad shot, you say, okay, I got you next time. Like I don't want guys fighting about shot selection on the court. I want guys who can get tough on each other and take that feedback too. Because if, we can be good with a good coach and an assistant coach, but we'll never be the best we'll be unless the players are doing the hard work of coaching too. So that's what I really look for. I look for guys who are versatile, who are smart, and who are willing to be coached and to coach each other.
Sounds good. Well, look, appreciate you coming on today. We're going to have all your contact information in the show notes down below, no matter where you're watching this. Coach Max Gordon, St. Paul's School in New Hampshire, coming on today to share his philosophies and a little bit more about the school. Max, we thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Corey. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time. Take care.